it's a dialogue. So it's not a continuous story around. Like I mentioned, the first piece over there was one of the first pieces, although I was making other environmental art. But the choice to make the earth and make it round, which was also me playing around with, after 15 years of telling students, no, round's a difficult shape. Don't make your paper, don't make your canvas round. It's loaded. And so I kind of realized, yes, it's loaded because it speaks of the earth or the sun or, these planetary bodies almost more than anything. But it also is the not the infinity symbol, but, for eternity. And so once I had those in process in creating the middle drawing called Mother Earth, Father Time, Dire Cycles, I just took one of my pieces of wood and stuck it in the middle and traced it, because I already was cooking the idea in my head that I would interrupt the tracings over here with a faint idea of the earth so that it would run through, which also is recreated in the spiral of passenger pigeons made out of stainless steel, the scorched earth of overpopulation, and the mirror to remind us that this is not something we can separate ourselves from, and is vaguely continued in the cluster of endangered tree leaves. The clusters of leaves at the end of the story create a suggestion of the same sphere. Over here was where I did really deep research about the different attributes they felt were contributing to this phenomenon, the era being renamed the Anthropocene. And so very deliberately, aspects of what we're doing to the earth that creates that reality is embedded in all of them. And so collectively, it kind of covers the story of the Anthropocene, whether it be chemical invasion or overpopulation or sea level rise, various things. One of my favorites, though, is the one I actually can't see from where I'm sitting, which is that idea of the hardening of the coast, that changing of environments in a profound way that cannot be undone, is probably one of the things we're doing at the highest speed. Asphalt over our earth, decimating forests, making more oil wells where there shouldn't be. And so that was a collective body. That may be a finished story. This piece was inspired by an artist whose name I'll probably butcher, Michel Parametier. He's French. He actually died at a young age. He created a series of very fragile paper with mark making that he insisted was about nothing. And he wanted to just be art for art's sake. And again, that thing I keep having happen that I'm almost realizing more now than I have during my art career, which is that I'm attracted to what I'm repulsed by. So I was almost angry with this artist that he claimed that it meant nothing, because I felt like it was like hearing a song or hearing the sound of a language or an animal cry that just speaks to your heart. And I said to myself, okay, I will take what he's been doing but change it completely. It'll be absolutely about something. Which the other thing that I try to do in my art, which is to take myself out of my comfort zone. I've not made anything that looked like this before. It has a lot to do with it is more difficult than it appears to be when you see it. For instance, most of these things are things you can't trace. The one exception are the little people. Little people are little false little people. But all the rest of it is the actual thing. And in most cases, you couldn't actually make a rubbing of the thing. Either you don't have access to it, it would destroy the paper. There's some other difficulty. So I had to create a process of things where I'm artificially making these rubbing things that I rubbed, and had to stay clean and methodic in the making of them. And so, that's where you realize, okay, is this the art moment that nobody sees? Because I'm in the quiet of my studio, rubbing after rubbing, and I can't, even myself, because of the criteria I've made, make aesthetic judgments. I'm allowing the process to, like, kind of make me worried or okay, depending on what was happening that day. But you do have to go through quite a few fragile papers before you get your rhythm. The other pieces were because I had this idea of creating artifacts after the fact of things that aren't necessarily gone, or in the case of the passenger pigeon, something that is gone. But they're kind of random. Also, the granite and the basalt aren't gone. But that I'm trying to make reference all the way back to the beginning of the creation of Earth, was first basalt and then second granite, and then the rest happened. Around the time the granite formed, there was quite a few minerals forming too. But here we have just a store-bought piece of granite and a store-bought piece of basalt. I didn't even do anything to it. I just stuck it on the wall. Because that whole idea of it's not heavily embedded in this, but consumerism, our need to own things, and maybe two of my biggest issues is overpopulation is one way to solve a lot of this. The other thing is that we actually don't need as much stuff, particularly as much disposable stuff. And again, to bring the contradiction in, it's not because I have been so pure in my behavior, but because I have been questioning my behavior. And so when I question it, then I make art about it, and then I feel I need to be true to my art and what I'm saying. And so it has this cycle effect.